a present for the gods. A gallery of birds swam in the wind, and the peacock screamed in the trees, while the adjacent room throbbed with a woman's weeping. All afternoon I sat on a long balcony, overlooking orchards entranced by green light and the black walls of the circular valley, while sobs and Gregorian chants penetrated the paper walls of the next room and washed over my solitude, as if I myself were an atom of sorrow, absorbed in prayer, until finally the woman's husband arrived from the capital, summoned as if from a bottle, a genie in a crisp, dapper suit, not at all a stricken bird like his wife, to coo in her ear solemnities of cricket song. Alone at night, in my own blue room, snug amid cool sheets, I was troubled from slumber by another song, wooing me awake, like some unseen, gigantic cicada hidden in the walls, some prehistoric insect whose sudden atavistic nocturne unleashed the moorings of my bed, casting me headlong into the ferment of dream and desire, sea anemones fingering my body. Outside my room, the banana plants clattered in the wind, and the hooves of riderless horses walking down below in the dark lane, under the black trees, under the black moon, lace shadows passing behind thought, punctuated the hour. Thanks. So then when I was in Morocco, I wrote a couple poems about that experience. And so here's one. Soon twilight will quiet the roosters below the hotel terrace on the Bay of Tangier, whose archipelagos sweeten my cafe au lait. Traffic is not yet slowed nor thinned. The hour thrums with people winding up to the Kasbah, laden with steaming dinner pails of shakshuka, and stopping at street corners to scoop roasted chickpeas into paper cones from wheelbarrow ovens. Coffee hour on the terrace, watching ferries from Gibraltar arrive in port. I'm happy to be where no one can find me. I am not a polyglot in this noisy crossroads. I have no voice, no permanence, and at this hour, no shadow, as this coast lists upward to the plateau, a ruffle in the continent. My life, a scroll unrolling and snapping shut at once, its text in visible ink. The bay, now a necklace of lights from late cars piercing the misty night. In several more hours I will sleep, only to be lulled from slumber at 3 a.m. by the muezzin's call, floating in its dark song, rising and falling in waves over the bay, as plaintive as lullaby. Prayer is better than sleep. Prayer is better than sleep. So then I went to Fez in Morocco because Paul Bowles had written some pieces in a novel about Fez, so I wanted to see it. And this is what happened on the train back to Tangier. One of the things that happened. What is the word for surrender? On the train from Fez to Tangier, I did not understand why we stopped miles from any city and all had to exit. This wasn't a junction, or even a crossroads, or a byway in which to lose our soul. There was no sign to say, "You are here." Not knowing our location, I watched the train shrink into the horizon. I hoped someone would join me on the platform to await another train, but none tarried. Instead, all hands melted into thickets bordering the track. Spirits of the place only, lacking even in echo. In a distant eucalyptus grove, a knot of ghostly adobes huddled as if abandoned long ago. I hoped I had heard right, had understood words not said directly, that another train was due shortly. But what if I was wrong? The wind whistled around me, the sun high overhead, skeins of cloud in an azure sky on marbleized paper. I turned this way and that, listening to the silence of the continent, vastness stretching forever. Not even a fly buzzed. Would I die in this place? I did not want to languish here when shadows lengthened, forced to approach a cluster of forlorn houses. An hour passed. Finally, I settled my luggage, watching the eucalyptus flutter in the afternoon. The moments opening, then closing, shriven by wind, a leaf blown into ether. My second to the last poem is about one of my trips to Spain, and I was working on a project regarding Lorca, and I wanted to see where he died. So this is called Apotheosis at Biznar. "Why do you want to go to Biznar?" asked the woman behind the tourist desk. "There's nothing there, just a plaque." Days later, I touched the bus toward the Sierra Madres, passing Fernando del Rios High School, passing Cipriano de Rivas Street, names from the Republic. As the road cruised upward to Biznar, a village beloved of Moors for its sweet winds and aqueducts, and where Muslim youth still linger today after school. And then, the long walk in the hot morning, out of the white village on a quiet little road with views of the Vega. I'm eager to hear birds as the road curves by olive trees of bloom, and caves in the distance with donkeys in their paddocks. A bicyclist passes, then a couple. I pass naked red cliffs like those along the California coast. Around a curve, I suddenly arrive at the steps to an unfinished amphitheater of blue and white plaques for the Republican dead, abandoned there before the vital name of Lorca could be added. I am glad for solitude and the bird calls and water still trickling through these ancient aqueducts down to Granada. In Lorca's time, no sensible person took this route. On his last night, Lorca was taken from jail, driven into these moonless hills, and deposited where I now walk with only a bad photo to identify the old olive tree and its nearby plaque. The ground is lumpy still, where men and women were hastily buried after a volley of shots. Then their stone markers later cruelly removed by civil authorities. Finally, near a ditch, I see the old tree, and nearby the plaque I mistook for an overflowing trash receptacle with dead flowers on top. And there, Lorca fell, wearing the loose tie of a poet. And this last poem, thank you, this last poem is for my husband. This might wake him up. I see him dozing here. There was no suffering today. Last night as we lay together, the wind blew through the open windows, and we could hear distant music like voices of other nights in other faraway neighborhoods. You slept, but I listened to the hour sounding more and more like summer, as children in their late playing called to one another, and a church bell tolled felicity through all the shadows. My drowsy thoughts drifted here and there, while birds still fluttered outside, and wind sailed through the curtains. So the night lifted and fell, a perfect cave for the absence of flowers. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Elaine. Thank you so much.
I'm out of breath.
Can we unmute, please?
That was very nice, Elaine.
Thank you, Elaine. Thank you so much. I'd love to, as always, we like to open the floor here. I'm sure everybody has a comment or two they'd like to say. We did have everybody muted while Elaine was speaking. So if you think that you are not on mute, you probably are. So feel free to unmute and let's go around the room, please.
Hi, Elaine.
Bonnie, you put yourself on mute.
Now am I on?
You're good, Bonnie. Go ahead.
Elaine, I love your poems, especially about Morocco. I too was there. What a strange place it is. What happened when you got left at that station? I mean, clearly something picked you up.
Well, I did know. Paul Bowles had asked me if the train stopped, and I had no idea what he was talking about, but it did stop. And we had to get off in the middle of nowhere, and then another train came along eventually.
Oh, okay.
But I didn't know that. I was clueless. And so it was a bit daunting to be left there all alone, not knowing if another train was coming by.
Yeah.
But all I could do was wait. See what happened.
So you were going from Fez back to Tangier?
Yeah.
I see. Okay. Yeah. No, it's a very strange place. I must say though, and I'm sure you found it that way, the cooking is amazing. I never had such incredible food before in my life. Did you find that too? The cuisine. I mean.
Yeah. Well, yes. I especially love sweets, magruth, honey cakes. I found this shop. And they were like, I think must have been bread or something covered with honey. And so I bought a whole bunch and brought them back to the U.S. And I found some like that in Minneapolis, but they weren't nearly as good as those I had in Morocco.
I have a sweet tooth too, but I love hearing about your travels, Elaine. Thank you.
No, you're quite welcome. My pleasure.
I'll remember specifically that description of. Oh, sorry. Go.
And they just take you to the exact spot and the exact atmosphere. The one about Oxnard and the flowers and the memorials was so stunning.
Yes.
So cool. Incredible. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, I always associate that poem with Phil because of how it ended up in a skew. So.
Fantastic. Thank you.
That particular description.
That was just a marvelous reading.
It's tough.
You took me so many places and also very soulful, and you read it so beautifully too.
Thank you. I was out of breath. I had to use my, for the first time in a year, I had to use this.
Oh. Well, I agree that first poem was a stunner. And the one about Lorca's grave also.